Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video I am going to be reviewing Matthew Pleasy's book on Catholic fasting. So it's this one here, the definitive guide to Catholic fasting and abstinence. So basically, if I just go here so that you can see the chapters, you've got this is the second edition with an expansion on the first edition. So you've got so he talks about the rise of Catholic fasting pre-Renaissance, and then the fall of Catholic fasting post-Renaissance, and then how and why, and then the complete history of the Eucharistic fast, and then Fellowship of St. Nicholas, which I'll get to, and then questions for future editions. So basically, one thing that I'll say about Catholic fasting here, so if we go to the chapter on the history of the Eucharistic fast, right? Now in with the modern rules, you only have to abstain for an hour, but traditionally, and as still practiced in the East, you actually abstain from midnight. As you can see here, so if we go to here, where there's a quote from Saint Basil the Great, I'll read this first. The oldest record we have of the Eucharistic fast as a midnight fast is from Tertullian, circa 160 to 220, who in Book 2, Chapter 5 of Ad Uxorem, references a fast from all other food before receiving the Eucharist. And then there's a quote from that chapter. Will your husband not know what it is which you secretly eat before taking any food? In the same era, sorry guys. In the same era, Saint Hippolytus, circa 170 to 235, in the Apostolic tradition writes, "The faithful shall be careful to partake of the Eucharist before eating anything else," and that's chapter 36. Saint Basil the Great also similarly admonishes the faithful. So here it is. Saint Basil the Great, 329 to 379 AD, similarly admonished the faithful who approach the Holy Eucharist to observe a period of fasting, though he does not cite it as originating at midnight. Quote, "The Lord receives the faster within the holy chancel. He receives not him that is full of excess, as profane and unholy. For if you come tomorrow smelling of wine, and that rancid, how shall I reckon your crapula for fasting? Do not think it is because you have not just poured in unmixed wine, but because you are not pure from wine." Shortly thereafter, the Synod of Hippo in 393 codified the Eucharistic fast as a complete fast from all food. The sacrament of the altar shall be received only by those who are fasting, except on Maundy Thursday, Chana Domini. It was likewise codified in Canon 41 at the Council of Carthage in 419 AD. Quote, that the sacrament of the altar are not to be celebrated, that the sacraments of the altar are not to be celebrated except by those who are fasting, except on the one anniversary of the celebration of the Lord's Supper, for the commemoration of some of the dead, whether bishops or others, is to be made in the afternoon. Let it be only with prayers, if those who officiate have already breakfasted. And that's and that's the origin of our word breakfast, because you wouldn't eat from the evening before, and then you would have a meal later in the day. So, yeah. Centuries later, St. Thomas Aquinas references this decree, noting that the exception for Holy Thursday had been abrogated by the time of St. Augustine. The wording of this decree is in accordance with the former custom observed by some of receiving the body of Christ that day after breaking their fast, so as to represent the Lord's Supper. But this is now abrogated, because as St. Augustine says, it is customary throughout the whole world for Christ's body to be received before breaking the fast. So basically, this book goes straight on, all the way. Then I'll get to page 179 right now. So the Fellowship of St. Nicholas. So the Fellowship of St. Nicholas is a lay solidarity championed by a Catholic life in partnership with 1 Peter 5 and Sensus Fidelium. It is committed to putting into practice concrete means to save one's soul and assist the souls of our brethren. Under the patronage of St. Nicholas, this fellowship intends to serve as a means for Catholic traditionalists to band together and make communal penance in reparation for the sins of the clergy, for the conversion of sinners, for the restoration of the Catholic faith, and a triumph of Christendom in every country, home, and heart. While St. Nicholas is well known for his charity and generosity, it is seldom mentioned how strictly he observed the fast and abstinence from his infancy, as the traditional Roman breviary remarks in the lessons at Matins. Nicholas was born in the famous city of Patara in Lycia. His parents obtained him from God by prayer, and the holiness of his life was marked even from the cradle. When he was at the breast, he never would suck more than once on Wednesdays and Fridays, and that always after sunset, though he sucked freely on other days. This custom of fasting he never broke during his whole life. Wow. Using the Church's venerable history of fasting and abstinence as our guide, we band together to hold each other accountable and to earn greater merits for souls. As St. Leo the Great affirmed, the exercise of self-restraint, which an individual Christian practices by his own will, is for the advantage of that single member, but a fast undertaken by the Church at large includes everyone. In the general purification, God's people never are so powerful as to when the hearts of all the faithful join in the unity of holy obedience, and when, in the Christian camp, one and the same preparation is made by all. and one and the same bulwark protects all. So here are the rules. All members of this sodality agree to commit at minimum to Tier 1, which is beyond the minimum required by church law. Members may also privately commit to either Tier 2 or Tier 3 at their own or their spiritual director's discretion. This is open to Catholics of any rite, although those in non-Roman rites are still nevertheless canonically bound to observe all obligatory days of fasting and abstinence in their rite, which may exceed the days in any given tier of the fellowship. So I'm actually doing Tier 1, so it's a Wednesday today. So you can have seafood, but yeah. This tier takes the 1917 Code of Canon Law as a minimum with some minimal changes. So no flesh meat. So meat from mammals or fowl are to be consumed on any Friday in the year with no exceptions. But I usually do that for Wednesdays as well. No flesh meat is to be consumed throughout all of Lent from Ash Wednesday through Holy Saturday, including Sundays. No flesh meat to be consumed on any Ember Day, the Vigil of Saints Peter and Paul, Vigil of the Assumption, the Vigil of All Saints, the Vigil of the Immaculate Conception, the Vigil of Christmas, the Vigil of Pentecost, and then this is for the US alone, January 22nd. No sweets may be consumed for the duration of Lent. Cake, cookies, pies, candies, gummies, chocolate, candy bars, pastries, cupcakes, etc., etc. And then fasting is defined as one meal only a day that may not be consumed earlier than noon, but preferably is consumed after 3 p.m. or even after sunset. If necessary, an optional evening collation and an optional morning frustulum is allowed. Fasting is to be observed for the entirety of Lent, except for Sundays, the Ember Days, the Vigil of Saints Peter and Paul, Vigil of the Assumption, Vigil of All Saints, the Vigil of the Immaculate Conception. So basically all the days that were mentioned above. So yeah. And then Tier 2 abstinence, everything as above in Tier 1 with the following additions. No flesh meat from mammals is to be consumed on any Saturday in the year unless that day is a first-class feast or form a holy day of obligation. Yeah, so I usually don't do Saturdays, so I usually only do Wednesdays and Fridays. Abstinence for all of Lent, including Sundays, includes abstaining from all seafood, eggs and all dairy products. Hence, Lent is a vegan fast, not a vegetarian one. While when abstinence is mentioned for all other fasts, abstinence refers only to flesh meat, unless otherwise noted. Abstinence on the minor and major rogation days. No flesh meat is to be consumed during St. Martin's Lent from November 12th until Christmas Day. So St. Martin's Lent is the one that's coming up because we are nearing the end of October and we're heading into November. Except for Sundays, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, unless it falls on a Friday, and Thanksgiving Day in the United States of America. Fasting. Everything as above in Tier 1 with the following additions. The entirety of St. Martin's Lent and Advent, except for Sundays, are days of abstinence from flesh meat. Alright. In this tier, the fast and abstinence that is omitted in years when a day falls on a Sunday is transferred to the preceding Saturday, as it was done before the 1917 Code of Canon Law changed this practice. Then, Tier 3. Abstinence. Everything as above in Tiers 1 and 2 with the following additions. Abstinence to the Vigil of the Purification of Our Lady, February 1st. The Vigil of Corpus Christi. The Vigil of St. Lawrence, August 9th. The Vigil of St. Bartholomew, August 23rd. The Vigils of St. Simon and Jude, October 27th. And for the duration of the Apostles' Fast, except on Sundays, and the Assumption Fast, except on Sundays. Fasting. Everything as above in Tiers 1 and 2 with the following additions. Fasting for the duration of the Apostles' Fast in June, except on Sundays, and the Assumption Fast in August, except on Sundays, along with the Vigil of St. Lawrence, August 9th, the Vigil of St. Bartholomew, so all the days mentioned above. And then in this tier, like the one above, the fast and abstinence that is omitted in years a day falls on a Sunday is transferred to the preceding Saturday, as it was done before the 1917 Code of Canon Law changed things. So, while not part of the fellowship tier, it is certainly praiseworthy to observe the practice of St. Michael's Lent. This fasting period begins on the Assumption, August 15th, and ends on the Feast of St. Michael, September 29th. It excludes Assumption Day itself and all Sundays which are never days of fasting, although they may be days of abstinence if one so chooses to keep them as such. Although devotion to St. Michael's Lent lacks the sort of history behind Lent or the Assumption Fast and the like, the standard of 1 meal, 1 frustulum, and 1 collation would be a good rule to follow in observing it. For the Eucharistic fast, keep the 3 hours fast at a minimum, striving to return to the midnight fast. Any member of the lay faithful can freely commit to Tier 1. So this is how to join. Any member of the lay faithful can freely commit to Tier 1, the base requirement for the fellowship. This commitment is a voluntary penance, and failure to fulfill this commitment does not bind under pain even of venial sin. To participate, you see the link here. Just copy and paste it. Copy and paste it like this when you get the book, which I'll link in the description. Whoops, sorry guys. Let's go back here. So copy and paste the link in there. So yeah, and then for the rules, go to 1 Peter 5, that link there. And there's an annual fasting calendar that that's produced each year. So the following, okay, all of these testimonials come from, you can read through these testimonials, but yeah, so that's basically it. And yeah, here's Matthew Pleasy. Matthew Pleasy, a third order Dominican who resides in Chicago, Illinois, is a third order Dominican who resides in Chicago, Illinois. Matthew is a practicing certified public accountant, author, and catechist. He's the president of Catechism Class, an online-based organization whose mission is to make the best. So you can get the book and read all that. So yeah, so that's basically it for this book. And in the next video, what I'll be reviewing is this one, also by Matthew Pleasy. So this is Restoring Lost Customs of Christendom. So if you please stay tuned for when I review this book. So yeah, thank you for listening. To support me further, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and God bless. Thank you.